about what we missed last week here. Now, all of these lessons have been about faith. And last week's was expectant mother's faith. Everybody hear me all right? I know Bobby all the time says, I can't hear you back here. But anyway, if you can't just
hear
tell me.
you right grass for things. That's what I tell.
But anyway, if you can't just tell me, and I'll try to speak up a little bit. Sometimes I kind of forget to talk loud because I don't want to have to wear that mic. That thing, it does crazy stuff sometimes. Makes noises. All right. And behold, the cousin Elizabeth, she had also conceived a son in her old age. And this is 6th month with her, who was called barren. For with God nothing shall be impossible. And Mary said, Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, be it unto me according to thy word. And the angel departed from her. I'm not going to go into all of it, but I was just wanting to bring out the obedience, where the angel appeared unto Mary and told her what was going to happen. Now, how many times has it entered into your mind or your heart that God wants you to do something, to talk to somebody, or maybe whatever it may be, and you said, boy, I wish I could get John to do that, or Barry, or something like that. I can't do that. But we see here, we see one, which was Elizabeth, that was really old. And I'm getting pretty old. I don't know about having kids or not, but I know I wouldn't want to have to try to raise one that was a little toddler. Oh my goodness. I think about Darlene whenever that, I think about that, how that she really had a lot of faith in the Lord was going to help her to do all that. And that as many of the rest of you, I think about Jimmy and Susan there. I know they've raised their kids, and God put it in their heart that these kids need a home. And they did it. And not only that, but other things that requires faith. Do we want to witness to our co-workers? We know that sometimes we might say, well, I'm afraid of what that they might tell us or think about us. But, I would rather to be favored by God than somebody that I work with. Anyway, and these women, both of them, had great faith, and they were obedient, and it was all part of God's plan that these babies would have. We see what kind of goodness had come out of the faith of their mothers. John was a forerunner of Christ, and how that he prepared the way of the Lord, and we know what Jesus done for us all. And we don't know what else may have happened. Whether or not it's like if I don't talk to, if I hadn't never witnessed to Larry, would Larry be here? Would somebody else have done what that I was supposed to have done? I don't know. And we don't never know that. So we don't know. We know that God has a plan that's going to be done. Why would we want to miss out on those blessings? Now see, I'm blessed because every time I read Larry's Facebook post, I'm like, what, Larry? I said, he sure gets to talk to witness to a lot of people. And he's pretty straightforward. And I think that sometimes that's the best route. I know there's times that we like to dance around issues and, kind of like here and there a little bit. But all in all, we need to get the point across that if people would wake up and look and see what's going on and how that, I thought Christmas morning, I laid there in bed and the Lord was talking to me and I said, Lord, I said, you have shown us love. I said, and men's killing each other worse than they ever did, it seems like. And more hatred and more violence and more perversion. And I thought, I said, about in Revelation, how it says, even the Spirit and the bride says, come quickly, Lord Jesus. We see what kind of evil days we're in. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go on over to the lesson.
You know, the news media fuels a lot of that for we hate
Yeah, starting
racism and everything. It's a shame.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we don't need to spread bad news, I don't think. The faith of the wise men. Would anybody want to read today's lesson? It's in Matthew chapter 2, 1 through 12. Want everybody to take part this morning. This is hard for me to figure out because we've read it so many times.
You just want the scripture read?
If you want to, sure.
1 through 12.
Thank you.
Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born, King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. And they said unto him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, And thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, and said, Go and search diligently for the young child, and when ye have found him, bring me word again, and that I may come and worship him also. And when they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The key text it said is, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen a star in the east, and are come to worship. I had, and I know that most of you have heard this time after time after time, because we have, around Christmas, we always, and a lot of times, this is read, during the Christmas program. But the title of it is The Faith of the Wise Men. Now, and I've heard other things that, I thought, I said, Lord, I said, what can I get at? What does this mean? I mean, what can I get out of this morning? The faith of the wise men. And we talked about that all of our lessons are on faith. It says, Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem. To start with, we see that Jesus was born as the Messiah, the King of Kings. And we know that he was born in a lowly place. not a great palace or something that would be fitting of royalty. And that he humbled himself as a man and would suffer all things for us to show us his great love. And there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem. I read in this commentary that they were probably from Persia, which we know that was Babylon. And Babylon was one of the kingdoms or empires, or whatever way you want to look at that, occupied Israel. They carried him away. We know that there was a lot of things that happened, and there were men of faith during that time also. So, and these wise men, they were called, in other places, they were called magi, which is a form of magicians, but mostly, and we know that the Bible talks about against soothsayers and things of that nature. But I think that more than that they were not necessarily ones of astrology, which we know that that's the zodiac thing there, that people try to predict their future by the stars and the way that they all line up, and the constellations and all that stuff. And we know that that's not the way that God works. We know that God is the one that's in control of our future if we serve him. And even at that, if we don't serve him, he's in control of our future also. Mm-hmm. But these men were more, I know that our grandparents, probably not our parents, I know that I've heard some of the older ones tell some of the younger ones. My dad told this story. He said that Dad liked to garden. I know that many of y'all probably do too. And they tell him they're planting in the wrong sign. Dad said, he said, I don't plant in the signs. He said, I plant in the ground. But anyway, he was just trying to be funny, I guess. But we know how that the old timers, they didn't have all of the resources that we now have, and all the studies that the government might study, and how that they like to spend money on everything and to do this and that. They knew that they watched the moon and the stars and all that stuff, and how that when they was going to plant, whether that would be early enough or too late, because you may have a frost or something like that. But men have always paid attention to the stars for some reason or other, and these men were, being wise men, they were very well educated. In Babylon being one of the first empires, they had a lot of knowledge, and so they understood that whenever that something in the sky had changed, that there was something going on. And I think that due to the fact that the Jews had lived there, that they knew some of the prophecies also about the coming Messiah. So they were wise in that respect, and they knew that there was something great going to happen. And they were Gentiles, if you want to think about that too. If they had been Jews, they would have knew all these prophecies and all this and that, and it might have been easier to understand why that they would have been seeking out this new king. But God's got a plan. And I think that this was part of it, to where that he was letting them know that Jesus was bringing in not only the Jews going to be their Messiah, but also of the Gentiles. So they came to Herod, and we've all seen and we know that of the brutality of Herod and how that he was envious of his power, and he was willing to keep it, and how that he had family members killed off, and to keep them from being his successor, because he didn't want any opposition to his power. But being in the right, I don't know what you kind of say it, being polite, in other words, to Herod, these men wanted to go to him because it was his country, right? So they wanted to do the right protocol, I suppose you would have it to say that. And saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are coming to worship him. Mm-hmm. Boy, I bet you that got Herod's attention, didn't it? He was kind of like one of these rulers that, so to say, they ruled with an iron fist. They didn't want any opposition at all. They didn't allow any kind of resistance to their authority. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. From what the commentator said, which makes sense because they knew Herod, and they knew how brutal he was, and they were like, well, he's going to start doing something. He's going to start killing people to try to get to this king. So Herod, I think he was an Edomite or something like that. He wasn't a Jew. So he didn't know the scriptures, didn't know the prophecies. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded them where Christ should be born. So he was wanting to try to get rid of this problem. Go find out. Of course, these wise men, he was trying to help them out, but he had a motive. He was going to use them to try to find this new king. So, and they said unto him in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet. That was the city of David, and that we know that it would come out of that city in the prophecies. And the prophecy was, and thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. What was the I thought why that was a question that we need to ask ourselves, and it doesn't have to do with Bethlehem, but I thought about how important that it is for us to seek Him. Do we seek Him? Do we seek Him every day? It's a good question. You don't have to raise your hands or whatever. I know each one of us, we have our own faith, but how important that it is that we take note of what that these the wisdom that they had in the faith of these men, how that they left their country, We think about Abraham, who didn't know where he was going, and how that they sought out Jesus. They walked by faith. And, well, I'll go ahead and read some more. Then Herod, when he had privately called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. So he was wanting to try to get a time frame, wasn't he? I think that on over in the next chapter it talks about, or maybe later in this chapter, I'm not sure, that every child under the age of 2 was slain. Herod commanded that. He was trying to get Jesus. So, but we know that an angel told Joseph to flee and go into Egypt to escape that. I guess we could see there that anytime that I would do good, evil is present. If you're familiar with that scripture, we see how that they were face to face with evil, but still they had faith and God had a plan. And God will deliver. He always does. Anybody got any ideas on this stuff? It's hard to bring out some of this stuff sometimes whenever they find something new. But anyway, and he sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search diligently for the young child, and when you have found him, bring me word." Boy, he's really setting them up. Again, and I may come and worship him also. We know that wasn't like here. People had seen what that he had done, and he wasn't going to bow down before no king. But these men were probably ignorant to that fact. I don't know whether that they noted it or not. So anyway, he thought that he would try that. And there was a question over here that this author wrote, or the commentator. It was, and we know that these men were, I mean, Herod he could have had these men jailed or whatever that he wanted to, but he didn't go that route. It says, what do you think? How might your congregation influence in your community remind people of Jesus? How do we remind them of Jesus? Can we just tell about Jesus, or whatever way that it is that we can share faith in Christ and what he has done in our lives?
You can tell them, and you can show them the way you live yourself. That's the witness right there.
Faith. Show them your faith.
Yeah.
Right.
I've heard it said, and we probably all heard it said that, in life, we don't have to brag. You shouldn't have to be able to brag on yourself. Other people should be able to do it. If you go out and do things and you brag about how you did it, but the thing of it is, your action shows what you do much more than what you say. So you can tell everybody that I'm good at something, or I can do it, until you show them. How do they really know you can? And I think it's the same way with God's love. Is you can tell them about it all you want to, unless you can show them God's love. Once you show them, you don't have to tell them. They'll see it, and
Just your walk of life will show 'em.
absolutely.
That's like in life, you're never lucky. It's God's blessing.
Yeah.
Just like I had that truck wreck. I wasn't lucky. It's God's blessing.
Amen.
Yep.
And I think anytime he does something like that, you ought to thank him for it. Praise him for it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people attribute things like that to luck. And I agree with you that it's not a random thing. God has a plan for everybody's life who would receive it. I had often, whenever I first come to the Lord, I'm like, why was I born at this time? Knowing what all kind of things that faced being a Christian, I asked the Lord. He said, because I'm with you, and I'm going to help you through this. And he always has. And he always will. I think about, I don't know about the star, but I know that there was a flame that guided the children of Israel by day. Well, it was a cloud by day and a flame by night. They were just wandering around, but they were following God. And faith is not, if you can see it, then it's not faith. I think it says somewhere in the Bible. Faith is the evidence of things not seen. I think it says in Hebrews. Evidence is proof, or you know that it's there. So these they may not have fit the mold of the time that we look at it as faithful people, like some of the prophets or Moses or Abraham or David or even Mary and Elizabeth. But it says that because they were Gentiles, where did this faith come from? I think about that and I don't understand it, but they knew that there was something.
Well, I think that's why, sometimes in our plays and stuff, we refer to them as wise men. And it's because they were very smart, they were very educated, and they were studies of the stars. That's what they did. They studied them and mapped them and knew a lot about them. And so when the new star appeared, and that's when they knew that what it represented, what it meant. And so that's why I think so often in our plays we represent them as wise men, because they truly were.
And I know that all of you that follow Christ today, that you would be considered as wise.
Yeah.
It must have been pretty bright because they traveled at night. It guided their way. It says I don't know exactly where it's at. I didn't look it up, but I just thought about it. It says that His word, thy word, is a lamp unto my feet. It lights our way, doesn't it? Shows us it guides our steps.
You know, you talked about the signs there a while ago. You know, it ain't a guess. It ain't like the weather, man. I followed the almanac for years, and if it says last frost is going to be March 21st, last frost will be March 21st. If it tells you it's going to be in the boughs, not the plant, it's a rock, you better not do it because it's a rock. I mean, they hit dead on the nose. So it ain't a guess. Somebody's wise and knows what they're doing.
Well, they, like you said, these people, that's all they had. They had to dig it out of the ground, so to speak. Dad always told me. He said, if you didn't plant it, you didn't have it to eat.
Yeah.
And you depend on that harvest to live through the next winter. When they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. This wasn't an ordinary star, was it? Because stars just don't move and then stop. This was truly something miraculous that only God could do. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And worshipped him. They knew that they had found Jesus. They knew that they had found the King. And I think about our worship. And this is coming up here in a little bit. We'll have our worship service. And how that we honor God. And we try to, and we're thankful, and we think about His goodness, and we submit to His authority. And that's what these men did. It don't seem like that they were poor, because they had, it's quite a caravan that they had that was traveling with them, and they, to finance such a trip, would have took some money. I know that, like Barry, if he flies to Louisiana, I can guarantee you that it's going to cost something. And he had to make preparations for that. And they didn't need gold. They were pretty well off. Why did they seek this baby, this new king? The only thing that I know is because they had faith and they had read that there was something better than the things of this world. The gold and all the power that might come. they did give him, in verse 11 it says, when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. These were, the gold was a gift. That was a kingly gift, wasn't it? And the frankincense was a type of a worship, an incense. Anytime you hear about an incense like that it's always in worship. No matter whether it's to the pagan gods or to the God, the King of Kings. And I've read that the myrrh, which was a fragrance, it's that was for his burial. They understood, I suppose, I don't know why that they brought all these things, but they understood what kind of king this was going to be. If we remember back over about Mary, how that she pondered all these things. We think about the promise that God gives us of new life, and how that he changes us from being a selfish person into a person that's a loving person. Somebody that wants to give of themselves. And somebody that has faith and is not well, we just come on Wednesday night if you want to. We've been in the books of Timothy, and now we're in Titus. It tells you what all that the fruits of the people that are not of God are.
Well, I have a thought or a theory that I always had on the gifts that they brought. And you would think, the gold and the frankincense and the myrrh was all very valuable stuff. And why would they bring them to him? Well, I always thought, something that was revealed to me, was what happened just as soon as they left. See, they had to get up, and an angel, as you already said, spoke to them and said, go in to Egypt to hide there. Well, they wasn't rich people. They wasn't. So they needed something to sustain themselves while they were over in Egypt. And I believe that's why the Lord provided them the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh, so that they could use that to live while they were away from their home. That was my thought on it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're right. They did need it, didn't they? And God does provide it. Did you ever look back through your Christian walk and see how that God has provided for you? There's been times whenever that you just didn't know how you was going to make it, but yet God provides. And they were warned of God in a dream that, in verse 12, they should not return to Herod. They departed into their own country another way. So they avoided Herod. How that he guides our steps. I know that I heard one woman, this has been years ago, she said in her testimony, she said, before I go to the grocery store, she said, I pray to see which one that the Lord wants me to go to. You don't never know who you're going to meet or what kind of situations you may be taken out of. And how good that it is to seek the Lord and to listen to Him. God speaks people, I know we seen there several times here that, wasn't it Peter, that he was on the housetop there fasting, well, he was hungry,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a sheet let down. But anyway, that's, whenever that, he told Peter in a dream about the Gentiles to let them in. How much time?
No, about 10 minutes.
I got 10 minutes. Anybody else got any ideas on something they want to say or whatever? We got plenty of time. If I could, this is in the conclusion in the part of the commentator, it says, most of us don't have much gold to offer Jesus. And if we even had any frankincense or myrrh, how will we offer those? But we can offer him sincere hearts and worship. He is the Son of God, the true Messiah. At this time of year, when we remember and celebrate the birth of our Lord in Bethlehem, may we offer our most precious gift, our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
One interesting question is about a dream. It says, how can a believer discern whether a dream is from the Lord or not? Did the Lord ever tell you something in a dream?
Mm-hmm.
He has me too. It's how do you know whether that's of the Lord or not? Do we have any? Could we use a little bit of scriptural background to know whether that what the Lord was trying to get across to us? If we knew the Bible, we knew what the will of the Lord is, then we could apply it to our dream maybe. Anyway, hopefully you got a little something out of it. I don't know. It's a hard thing to try to bring out. I've heard this all my life, most. But hopefully you can have faith.